show you their skills live and in person. Watch as they chop, grind, and weld their creations into existence right before your very eyes. Feel free to ask questions at any time directly to your host, Pat Jansen. The doors to the shop are open, so pull up a stool, kick back, and welcome to the Grease and Gears Garage.
Hey there, Facebook land. Once again, we're at the Blue Ridge Cherokee Run. This is our last day here. 3 days we've been here. We've had some great people up on stage. We're going to get back to something we were doing before. Dustin Maven was, and Evan Favaro was up here earlier. Evan had built the tank, did some plenishing hammering, wanted an English wheel, but he had to do it by hand because we didn't have one with us. And now he's going to turn it over to Dustin. He's going to take the next step and weld the seams up and do some metal stuff.
Yeah, so we're going to go over what it takes to, from the point that Evan got it, ready for me to welding that up, to metal finished correctly, which is a piece we did quickly yesterday to show you the importance of the panel needs to look like one piece of material when it's done. And just to recap, that's not just for the strength on a tank, you don't want it leaking, things to that effect, but it's also for the body work when it gets to the painter so that the seam doesn't show or fail. If it's been welded and it's not lined up properly or finished outright, and you have what we call a cliff edge, which is where the two panels don't line up, one side's higher than the other. When you come back to grind it, you hit one edge and you can't get to the other, and you can feel the weld with the edge of your fingernail. It's real common especially in the automotive world, for people to put a panel in and have that cliff edge all the way around there.
Yeah, that's a big factor, especially for the finisher, the painter. This is something that really helps the next step. And we had mentioned while we were doing this before that, your prep work, the guy who makes your sheet metal, the guy who does your fab work, your finished product's really only as good as what you put on the table for the painter and the guy that does the body work.
That's correct. Nothing wrong with body filler, but it's not magic in a can.
Right.
So the rule of thumb is if you can see the weld seam before you take it to a paint shop, the chances are they use body filler and it's slick and it's smooth, but the problem is that it expands and contracts at a different rate than the metal.
Yeah.
So if there's a hard edge under that Bondo's hiding, it'll create a ghost line when the panel gets hot, and it may go away when the panel cools down.
Right.
But you may pull it out in the sun.
Yep.
And you may see that seam, just a dead giveaway where the panel lined up.
Right.
It may not ever physically crack if it's welded solid and strong.
But it'll be visible.
It'll be visible. It'll give you a cosmetic reason to be sick to your stomach.
Yeah. And that's it. We were saying Evan threw this together really fast, and a normal tank like this, he was saying 25, 30 hours minimum. Right. He said that's really pushing. So, for the purpose of what we're doing, and amazingly, it's going to look beautiful as usual, but, we're pushing it. We're doing it faster than we normally would. So, but still the tips, the advice, the direction is sort of what we're trying to get out there to you instead of, we sure want a finished product, but when you're doing a bike like, we have the AMD show here, which, was finalized yesterday. The judging was yesterday. And there's some beautiful bikes here. And, sometimes you got 50, 60, 70 hours into painting some of these crazy paint jobs. And to have a line like this could, you may be the only one who can see it, but being the guy that does paint work like I've done and I do, that's a problem, because then you look at your product and you're never happy with your finished product. So to get a better job for this half of it, like Dustin was saying, that's the smartest move. Start from the underneath. Don't have to worry about fixing it from the top. So,
Right. And so we're going to TIG weld this tank. You could, for everybody out there watching, you could MIG weld it if you wanted to. I choose to TIG weld it because I think it's a lot cleaner of a weld and a lot more chance of having no porosity in there, especially on a gas tank.
Yeah, MIG's a little bit would be a little harsh for this, I think.
Right, I think it would be too, yeah. But certainly people could do it. They may not have a TIG welder. You certainly, could do it.
Yeah, if you're good with a MIG, but if you have the option of a MIG or a TIG, I agree with you. I'd go TIG all the way.
Yeah, that's all that I do at my shop. We TIG weld everything. We seldomly, it might be once a year, we
Yeah.
turn a MIG welder on, so it's 99% TIG work.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, the TIG weld, like we talked yesterday, is it's a little softer of a weld, so you can hammer it. You know,
Right.
if you welded this up and and it got a wampus in it,
Yeah.
you needed to move it. You know, you could beat on that seam.
Yeah.
And move that. If that was a MIG weld, it would most likely crack.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a lot
but-
harder.
Yeah,
It's
it
a lot
gives
more
you a-
brittle.
Hotter, makes
Yeah.
the metal hotter, more chance of it breaking if you have to do some adjusting to it when it's done. But again, while Evan was up here, he had pulled out some Fay Butler stuff. Then, I mean, all of these lines are, Evan sort of is a master at this stuff, just like Dustin is, but pulled out gauges. So you're pretty much, the dimension of everything here is all really close. And like you're saying, you may have to tweak a little bit here or there, and you don't want to take a chance of, if you MIG it, you crack it, then you're replacing pieces of it, just way more work.
Right.
I'm trying to
Right.
minimize. It's, you already have enough, the fabrication, the bike build, and all the rest of the stuff. If you have the opportunity to minimize what you're going to do overall, you're way better off, I think.
Right. Right. All right, so I'm just going to get started. I'm going to put some tacks around here and get this held in
Okay.
place. I'm going to dolly this just a little bit more so I can get that corner lined up, and then I'll go into welding it. So,
Yeah, let's get it on. What kind of welder do you use?
So this is a ESAB Rebel AC/DC machine. It's by all means an industrial machine. I have some standalone TIGs at this shop, but they're just too big to bring to something like
Yeah,
this.
right.
But it'll run head to head even with the standalone TIGs. It's a really nice unit, especially for somebody who has a garage and can't decide between a MIG or a TIG. And this
Yeah.
is the whole package, and it's got AC, so it can weld aluminum.
Right.
It's limited to 200
Versatile.
amps.
Real
yeah, it's real
versatile.
versatile. Yeah.
And mobile. If you need to move it around,
Yeah.
you take it outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's limited to 200 amps on the AC, so you're not going to get no thick aluminum out of it. But
Right.
if you're in the situation where you can't decide between a MIG and a TIG, chances are you're probably not looking for more than 200 amps
Right.
to begin with.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I've got a push button torch. I'm using a foot pedal today, but I got a push button. We got some really tight spots at the shop, so sometimes, laying on your back upside down.
Oh yeah. Yeah, part of the learning curve for TIGging isn't just learning how to TIG the hand-eye coordination. It's the contortionist
Yeah.
part of it that comes with it. You need to really do your stretching exercises in the morning if you have a rough job.
Right. And Michael Furyk Cup, so shout out to Michael Furyk.
Yeah. Well, while he starts welding this up, we have to maybe thank the people from Blue Ridge Cherokee Run. It's been an amazing week, been a ton of people down here. It's a beautiful place, beautiful riding. They have all kinds of events, all kinds of people been here. They actually ran 3-4 bike shows yesterday, 4 in a row. Dave Pierwood's paint show was yesterday, which had a killer turnout. Cycle Source Chopper show was yesterday, which there was 35, 40 bikes in that. We have the AMD, which is the winner of this goes to the World Championship to represent the United States, represent America in the building industry. And Brian Butera Metalworks won that. He's the one that's going to be going to represent the United States. So congratulations to him and to everybody that brought bikes. I mean, I said you watch this show and the cameras face us. What we're looking for, but we want everybody to watch us, of course. But if you could see around the bikes that were set up, some of them already pulled out of here, but the bikes that are set up in this room that we're in are amazing. I mean, some crazy craftsmanship, and these people really go out of their way. So, hats off to Bob Kay, Kevin Dunworth, all the guys from the AMD for making this happen. It's a pretty cool scene having all these guys in the same room together, and the friendships and the companionship for the builders is pretty off the charts.
Yeah,
So-
second to none. Bob does such a good job.
Yeah, they
Put
do a
on the
great
show.
job. And everybody brings their A game. I mean, that's like one of the coolest things about this. Everybody really goes out of their way to, it's the best of the best here in all reality. So, but it's a great run, flat track races, Wall of Death, Circus Uno, Flores Family. They do a bunch of bands, just off the charts bands here, some really good stuff. But the thing for this place is, which the majority of the guys that brought bikes in the Cyclosaurus and the Flat Road family, Dustin and all them got to go this morning for a bit of a ride, which they all seem to have a little bit of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't make that. I was leaking a little bit of fuel, didn't want to take a chance, but yeah, it was a pretty good run. Everybody enjoyed themselves. I think Chris almost sent Austin Andrella for a little bit of a crazy ride, but yeah, it's like I said, the friendships that are evolved from this are definitely worth the time that everybody puts in. So, and again, I'm not Pat Jansen. I'm Mark Persichetti from Flat Road Chops and Rods. Pat's not with us this week or this weekend, which is sort of upsetting because then that means I need to talk all the time. And you know, anybody that knows me knows that's really not my gig. But got to do what you got to do. Hurry up, Pat.
I was wondering why he wasn't here.
Yeah, Pat had himself a little working incident, so he's getting himself fixed up a little bit. So tell him what you're doing with that seam. Obviously.
So I'm just fine-tuning it in. You know, like we talked about, Evan didn't have enough time. You know, he got 2 hours to do something that took 30. So I'm just fine-tuning this seam just to get it a little closer, so I'm not feeling such a big gap.
Yeah.
And you know, that way I can.
Now
weld it
you
up properly.
you could fill a gap. Like
I
that.
could feel that, but it would be, you'd almost be going backwards. I mean, it's going to take you a lot longer to fill it than it is to be patient, grab a hammer and fix it the right way.
And again, for finishing purposes,
right,
such a better job once this is all welded all the way up and those seams are nice and tight. Like Evan was saying yesterday, Evan does not tank seal his bikes.
Right.
He pressure tests them. He leaves them alone. He said it's, you know, which we tank seal a lot of stuff we do, but again, it's a different application in some situations.
Yep.
Some of the tanks that we hand build, we don't have to tank seal. We do safety-wise. Evans, on the opposite, thinks it's a better chance of not having to have the tank sealer come off than making sure your tank's in good shape.
Sure you better chance of not having it come
right.
off.
Okay, wait a minute. Now I really hate Evan.
Why?
Because he doesn't use tank sealer or putty.
Well, he doesn't use putty sometimes. And he lies a lot, too. That Evan, got to watch that Evan. He'll sneak up on you. No, we love Evan. He's a great guy. Does some amazing work. Proposed to his girlfriend right on this stage at an event, which was pretty funny. Well, yes, Ben Davis too. Yeah, which we never did see Ben Davis this weekend. He had some trouble, but Ben Davis proposed to his girl in Laconia. So this stage is starting to become a wow. We might want to watch. Anybody might want to watch bringing their girlfriend up on this stage. Starting to draw some problems. Is Greasing Gears like producing rings somewhere that these guys are giving away, or I don't know what's happening.
I know BMR used to be responsible for a couple babies.
Oh well, that's a whole different story. Those people half of them don't even know each other. That's a whole different field in its own. But again, the people like Evan and Ben Davis, you know, these people are, you know, people that we stay in contact with all the time and have become friends, you know, through industry stuff. Like I was saying, with all these builders, you know, in a weird situation, you'd have all these builders in a room and they're all competing against, for some cases, big money. And the friendship and the camaraderie is just off the charts. Brian Butera had some issues in LA for the Golden Bolt, and people had stopped and helped Brian get himself back in line and ended up turning around and winning the Golden Bolt. You know, that's a $30,000 prize. So, you know, while he cried on stage, also, you know, of happiness, of course, which $30,000 on his second build ever is a pretty damn good achievement. But he never, for 1 second, didn't stop to thank every individual person that stopped and helped him get that bike back up and running and to the show. So it's nice to have that, especially for us, because then that gives us the opportunity, which, you know, this is Progressive Insurance are the people that helped us bring this to you guys, and to be able to have the ability to get these guys up on stage, and these are masters at their craft, and to give you these little tech tips that in all reality might save you a lot of aggravation, a lot of time.
All right, so I got it all tacked in place. What I like to do next is I'm going to run over it with this tool, and knock the tops of the welds off, because I'm going to go left to right, and that way I don't run over the top of a high tack.
Right.
And
What size grit paper you use on?
this is just 80 grit. And, not going to be removing hardly any material, just the high spots of the welds. I do that because the tacks are, they're a little high. I like to run, A to B, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And if I left the tack high, then I couldn't really add filler wire right there. When I got to it, I just kind of
Right.
have to wash it.
Yeah.
So instead of washing over it, I can just get it down. There'll still be enough material there to hold the panel together.
Right.
And I can just add filler wire the entire way.
Right.
That's just the way I do it. It doesn't have to be done that way. It's
Yeah.
just
And that's another thing we had talked about yesterday, that these are all a bit of direction. This is steps, a lot of steps and procedures. We had Austin Andrella from Austin Martin Originals and Brian Butera Metalworks up here the first night we were here, and got a lot of good information on how to keep your product clean, make your welds better, and and then with these guys up there showing you how to tack them together, and it's all this is one big circle. You follow your procedures and take these tips, and might make your job a little bit easier. It sure can't make you award-winning bike builder, but in all reality, the whole point of this is anybody. We bring this to you to show you how to do it. Anybody can build these bikes. It's not rocket science. It's it's just procedures you follow, and then you're designing your capabilities. And you're trying to offer information to expand your horizons a little bit, give you the ability to go way further than you think you can on your own. And it's been 3 years, greasing gears? Yeah, it's been 3 years, 4 years. What's that? Third year here, 4 years doing greasing gears, and we built whole motorcycles on stage. We built some pretty cool stuff, and had some really great people up here. Aaron Green, Burt Baker, Mondo, Billy Lane, Pat Patterson, which I don't even want to say Pat Patterson's name. I can't say Will Ramsey, because if I do, everybody out there will have to do another shot, because we said his name so much. Jeff Cochran, Roadside Marty, some really big people in the industry, and to get into their tech tips into their heads, there's no other way that's going to happen for most people. So to be able to, thank Progressive for being able to bring that live to you people is just, and then places like this Blue Ridge Cherokee Run, and we go all over the place and do this. We've been to the IMS shows. We've been through, almost every big bike event. Sturgis, Myrtle Beach. You went to Myrtle Beach and had talked about possibly bringing it there. Daytona, we've done it pretty much everywhere. So, and actually don't have to do it. This is our last one of the year, right? Yeah, we do the Tennessee Music Revival, which is coming up next, which if you haven't looked up or saw anything about that, definitely look into that. It's going to be a crazy good time. We've been invited, Flat Broke's been invited to present a bike there for the BC Bill Dodge Invitational, which is a huge honor. Kerry and Buck have gone out of their way to make that a great event, and can't say how excited we are about going to be a part of it. So it's going to be fun. What else do we have coming up today? In motion at Galveston at Lone Star Rally. Do a little in motion in a couple weeks. There's is it York Bike Week? Is that what it is? We'll be at the York Bike Week. The Cycle Source will be out there doing some bike games and everything out there, or just mini bike races, which go for that. It's worth every second of it. Also, we'll be at Glory Days. Flat Broke will be set up at Glory Days in Pittsburgh. which looking forward to that. It's a nice, close home event. Reno, Street Vibrations with Mondo in Reno. That's coming up. Flat Broke, me and Chris will be there for that. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff still coming up here nearing the end of the nearing the end of the season. It's not quite over yet, but we have 3 or 4 events left to do. Greasing Gears, this will be our last event for Greasing Gears for the year. So, which, not hauling all this stuff around, but not getting to be up on stage and do this stuff and see all the people that we see is, sort of depressing. How's it going there, Dustin?
Yeah, it's getting there. And definitely, I know we got Hank coming up next, so I'm trying to hustle through this welding. Kind of like Evan, I'm doing a lot of welding a lot faster than what I'd normally like to do it.
Yeah.
But it's coming out okay. It'll be all right.
As we say goodbye to Xavier Muro from Providence Cycles, who also was in the AMD show and always here to help out and be a big part of everything we do. Yeah, it's slowly but surely we're watching everybody pull out. Yep. Yeah, we're slowly watching everybody pull on out of here today. Now that the AMD voting's over, all the bike shows are done. There was some cool prizes yesterday. A lot of excited, happy people for winning some trophies, but there was some amazing bikes here. Well worth the time. He's slowly making it down there. A little bit left to do. And if anything's wrong with this, we can blame it on Evan, because that's what I do mostly. If anything's ever wrong with what I'm doing, I blame Evan anyway. Yeah, we've had a good bit of people up here. I think we have one more show today yet, right? Yeah, I think we're doing one more. I'm not positive. But we've had a good array. Some good information came out of it. The Brian Butera and Austin Andrella setup up here the other day was really informational on welding and exhaust creation and stuff like that. Well, it looks like he's welded up, cleaning up a little bit. Looks real nice. So tell me, you're just going over the edge of that now to look and see if you have any spots to miss, or is he still on? Mike? Trying to. No? Where is the... Yep, he's still on. Did he shut the mute? Is there a mute on it? Nope. Well, still anything yet? No volume on your mic? No. Well, anyway. We'll get it back up. So just cleaning up the tops to see if you have somewhere that you missed, or yeah. So he's going over it until we get his mic fixed. He's going over it, knock the high spots down, make sure he doesn't have any low spots and filler. But, obviously you got to grind down to check and make sure you're good on your spots. And, I mean, it is a bit of a slow process, but, again, in all reality, it's the best way to get a good finished product. Yeah. Right. Yeah, he's like you're saying, to get do a one straight run and grind it down on one pass it normally doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
You know, this takes time, and you do have high and low spots. You always have to go
Test,
back. and-
test. Yep, there we go.
always have to go back and check up on stuff, and better safe than sorry, especially on the grounds again.
Yeah, and you don't want to push it either. I mean, this is so I can see a low spot right here.
Yeah.
If I wanted to grind that out, I could,
but you're just
but it's going to
removing
grind it
metal.
too thin.
Yeah, you're
you
just
know.
removing material then.
Yeah, so I'd rather come back and run what we call a stringer beside it,
Right,
and fill that low spot up,
right.
and bring it up to the edge of that weld, and that way I can get it metal finished out
Yeah.
properly.
And
So-
again, like Evan said, better safe than sorry for the fact he doesn't seal his tanks. His
That's
tanks
right.
are raw, so. Yeah, it's sort of at the end of the event here for us, and like I said, slowly, just as we were here, 3 or 4 bikes have slowly pulled out. A few got pulled out for the ride today, which is pretty cool. You got bikes here at the AMD show that are competing to go to Germany for the world build, and we decided to go on a ride this morning, and people come in here, grab their bike, put fuel in it, and they take these world build. I mean, these are like really riding motorcycles. This isn't, these aren't, as much as they're works of art and pieces of art, these are actual, they're real deal functioning motorcycles, which is a whole class up from, some of the bike show bikes.
Hey, Mark, in from Facebook, Carlos Amador checking in before he takes a canyon ride today. But there-
Carlos,
we got
have you been waiting?
we got social media up and running. We also have Mark Hoffman says very cool design on the tank. So
This is an Evan Favaro design, speakeasy tank. He's built, he said, probably 150 of these. He actually did one in Sturgis and one, was it Laconia?
yeah, and the one in Sturgis he raffled off for charity.
Yep.
He finished the tank on stage and gave it away.
Yeah. So Evan's done, these are, if you like the style of this and it's something you're interested in, Speakeasy Customs or Speakeasy Motors, go check out the website. Evan's got a lot of cool stuff. At one point for a while there, he was the lead fabricator for OCC. So, he always got some really nice stuff. And all of these guys, every one of them, to go check out our lineup over the years and, just this past year of some of the builders we have. This is the second time or third time we worked with Dustin. Third time worked with him. And this is a guy that, we knew nothing about and came down here and saw the bike here. And his metalwork is hands down one of the best. All metal. He doesn't play around. There's no fiberglass panels. And if you saw some of his builds, to go on his website, see some stuff, he does some amazing work. Really, really knocks it out of the park. And it's great being an older guy. We've been in this industry for a while now. To see some of these younger guys like Dustin and Austin Andrella and Evan Favaro and people like that come up to play now and really be, competitors in this. To
Blowing
really be,
our old asses out of the water is what you're trying to say.
Right.
That's,
Right, pretty much. But again, we had said the other day, the technology level from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and even longer when we were starting 25, 30 years ago, it's a completely different game now. So we didn't have the majority.
well, let's see. Some of the tools that they have today, like English wheel,
well, they had
welders.
English wheels back then. Just you could never afford or get to one.
That's what I was just
You know?
trying to say to you. We had the tools too. We didn't have the tools.
Yeah, we didn't have them in hand. So we had to make way around. And again, built some pretty off-the-charts motorcycles back in the
Wait,
day.
Mark, I'll argue with you about that because I remember Dustin's first segment up here, and he used a slap hammer
Yep.
and
Yeah,
a
because
couple paddles.
I remember you saying you
Yep.
wanted to go get one. I think actually you bought one of those.
I bought him after watching him, and I still can't use it as good as he
I don't know
does.
if I've ever said that. Have you used it?
Yeah.
We have a lot of dusty tools at the garage.
I know.
So, but yeah, and really like Evan, who sort of followed in the footsteps of Will Ramsey, have a shot, do a shot. Went to Fay Butler, who is a, historical metal worker. Like this guy here, what Evan said, he doesn't even own a grinder.
Dustin,
he
how
doesn't-
about you? Who'd you study under coming up, or you just pick it up along the way? Did you
Who'd you
understudy
follow
with
doing
someone?
this? Did you follow somebody who made you be interested in what you're doing?
So many different people when I was younger that I looked up to. I still look up to today. I've always had a little more aggressive style. So for me, it was Martin Brothers, Shannon Davidson.
Yeah.
The car guys like Troy Trepanier. Some of the big names.
Yeah.
Have always been the styles and
Right.
the craftsmen.
And did you go any schooling? Did you have anything?
No.
You were like we were. Like here's
I was,
a hammer, here's a piece
I
of
was
metal.
too dumb to quit.
Yeah, right.
We're
We're still there. So it's amazing how you'd think over all these years you'd figure that out, but nope.
Nothing against schools, though. I mean, there's definitely, if you can afford to go to a trade school and get a training and not have to learn the hard way,
Right.
and by all means, it's a good option. I know they have an excellent welding program where I live, and the teacher is a
Fantastic welder and really good with the kids, and this is a college program, so adults, I should say.
Oh, that
But,
was me. It was a high school. Mr. McDowell was my high school shop teacher. My father was into selling, but was never really into repairing. And having that opportunity in high school, which, Kevin Teach Bass Metalworks, that's what he does for a living. He's a high school shop teacher, and he literally builds custom bikes in his high school. So just to be able to bring this, to the next generation and to see them get excited about it and run with it is pretty cool.
Right.
So what are you thinking? How's that look?
Well, I got it welded up, so now I'm feeling for any wampuses that I might need to dolly a little bit. And I'm going to do a little dolly work. Go back over it one more time, just wherever I do my dolly work. And then from there, I'll take it out to metal finish, from what it is here to what it needs to look like. So people understand the different uses of the different grinders and
Right.
tools. That these are kind of my go-tools. I have a whole grinding card at my shop that's anticipated nothing but metal finishing.
Yeah.
And on my social media, you can see some of the more complicated parts where this is a relatively easy seam here.
Right.
You can see some of the more complicated seams that take a lot more tools, and you may only use them, once every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. You
Yeah.
have 20 tools on the table.
Yeah, probably more.
Yeah,
and
you use just a small
just
piece
the small
of them all
pieces
the time.
80% of the time. And that's just the ones that I brought today. And even of the ones I brought today, there'll probably only be 2 or 3 ones that on a seam like this that I need.
Right.
There would be no need for this or,
Yeah.
or that on a seam like this.
Right.
So
Yeah, and again, you can't emphasize enough that, this is their technique to get you to the point. Once you start doing this, you come up with your own technique, your own way to make things easier on yourself. So it's not, like I said, it's not pushing you into solely using this grinder or this, angle grinder or whichever. You get comfortable with the tools that you have and what you like to use. Then for some people, it doesn't have to be a $1 million welder. It could be a $200 welder you're more comfortable with.
right.
Because, we take these guys out of their shops, literally out of their element, and put them in front of a group of people, in front of cameras, and throw questions at them like crazy. So, it's amazing how well they all handle that. Because I don't handle stuff like that real well. So,
Hey, I have a question, Dustin. While I'm sitting here watching you weld, I see you like trucking through big sections of that weld, and I'm always really, really apprehensive about how much of an area I'm covering at once and how wide my heat affected zone is and stuff, especially working on sheet metal like this. Is that just a question of how fast you're moving, that you're keeping that far ahead of the heat, or what?
Well, really, I'm going too fast, so I definitely don't recommend people at home going that fast if they don't have it. They're first getting into it. This is really just kind of like Evan. It would take a lot longer to weld that seam. If you were doing it on the table and taking your time. On the stage when you got time constraints. So I'm just going through it much quicker. Trying not to put.
would you do spots normally, and then
I
come
would
back
do
and
some
fill
spots, but they wouldn't be very far apart. So I might run on a tank, something like that, that holds some that I really want to make sure there's no pinholes. You know, I might run 2 or 3 inches at a time,
Yeah.
and then 2 or 3 inches down here, and walk those 2 welds up to the center, instead of just going, you know, down it like I did today, and just to make sure you don't pull no wampuses in it. But I wouldn't cut that into, you know, half-inch segments. You know, this panel has got some shape to it. That's going to keep it from warping. That's going to hold it rigid. If this was a flat panel on a car, or a quarter,
Yeah,
or a door,
whole different story.
it's a whole
Yeah.
different story.
Yep.
It's an absolute different story.
Yeah.
Um,
And we had went through yesterday about when you get with flat panels, how somewhere along the line you need to put a bit of a bevel, run them through an English wheel, run them through a plenishing hammer, get a little bit of a bevel to it, because if not, it's very floppy, it's bouncy in the center. Then you get the car done. Dustin had brought this up before. You get the car done, you pull it outside in the sun, it gets hot, the panel warps. So you want to make sure you avoid that. So it's looking nice. Yeah, the more and more that he seems to DA and take off, he's finding little tiny spots he's filling back in. And like I said before, you get to that point to where you're happy with it, you start dollying it, getting it back to the shape you wanted if it's out in any way, which compared to MIGging would make the metal so thin and so hot or so brittle from the heat that it good possibility it would crack. You know, you're trying to do this without losing a lot of material. I mean, that's pretty much the end game for this.
right.
Yeah. You know, and as you can see, he's slowly working through making it, like what, 4 of the 5 or 8 tools you brought over there you've gone through already?
Yeah, probably. I didn't even keep track, but probably nowhere near as many as I got stacked up there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very the tools that you're going to use are varied. And again, this isn't, you know, you come up with your own technique, your own style, your own way of doing things. You know, everybody has their own way of doing things. You know, if you find an easier tool or a better product, you know, I'm sure anybody would encourage you to go for it, as long as you keep your metal, keep your material thick. You know, don't put yourself in a position. You know, this is a whole different story from frame building and structural.
That's
You
right.
know, this can crack and fail on you. You leak a little fuel or whichever. However, you don't ever want to take that chance with a frame, a front end, a wheel. You know, that's a whole nother game.
I think it kind of is still the same theory though.
Oh, it is.
You know, I mean, you definitely want to approach it with all the structural integrity in mind, even though it's a different structure and lighter material.
Yeah.
But there's gonna be forces at work on this part, just like a frame
Yeah.
or a wheel, that you have to consider.
Yeah, I'm just saying in general, like, we all pretty much go at this coming out with the best product we can possibly come out with. Not saying anything's less, but, you know, the point, keeping your material, don't run yourself thin, don't take a chance. You know, a lot of times through the past 2 days of welding conversations, people mentioning, you know, make sure you have, you know, you chamfer back, you weld, get a good weld, make sure you're welding material and not just working solely with, you know, filling gaps and stuff. You know, Evan was saying how he works with a line of light and almost watching Dustin sand this and go over it with a disc. You can see him following that almost exact line of light. So you can see slowly, he just keeps going back and filling little spots, highs and lows, grinding down some, filling some. So you don't just do bikes, you do cars and everything, correct, Dustin?
Yeah, in fact, I do a lot more cars than bikes. Absolutely.
Do you have a preference?
No,
No.
no,
You
no
just
preference. I like them. I like them both.
You just like the fab end of it. Yeah.
I like the pursuit of craftsmanship,
Yeah.
no matter what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So as I'm fine tuning it up, I'm working on not grinding that weld so hard now with what most people call a roll lock disc, a more
Yeah.
aggressive disc that
Yep.
removes an ambitious amount of material. So I'm backing off on that a little bit and trying to use some of these tools. This is a
The cookies, the padded discs.
yeah,
or
Scotch
DA.
Brite. This is just a DA but it spins like a grinder. So it's really a grinder. Let's just call it a grinder for practical purposes because it doesn't have a figure eight. It does remove material, but it takes a soft pad and a piece of easily available 80 grit sandpaper you can get at the store.
In comparison to the row lock, that takes off way less
Way
material.
less.
Yeah.
Way less. Way less.
And the DA also spins orbitally. Doesn't just spin around, but it also shifts and moves around. So you get multiple, when it comes to body work, you never want to do a follow. You always want it to be broken up, and you want a dirty sand. Then the DA works the best for that. You couldn't get away with using a row lock or a angle grinder because it's just a grinder. It spins and there's no orbiting to it at all. I mean, obviously you can see he's gone over this probably 6 or 7 times already. So, just a matter of, get it down to where you're happy with it. And the cleaner and the better it is, again, for the body guy, the paint guy, the finisher, unless you're going with a raw material bike. That's a whole nother game.
I got a little technique that I use at that part of the build, Mark, that's called the hell with the body guy.
What's that?
I said, I got a little technique that I use at that part of the build. It's called to hell with the body guy.
Well, right. I know. If nobody out there knows, that was a definite throat punch to me. But that's all right. I'm used to it. But we push ourselves. We had 4 or 5 bikes in here between me and Chris, the flat builds. And we do so many things that we don't give ourselves enough time to eat, let alone do half the stuff we're supposed to. But we always try and bring the best to the table. But the funny part about it is we're normally a day or 2 before we have to leave doing body work and paint work. That doesn't stop us from doing the most difficult body work and paint work that there is. But, I guess we survive on those challenges. And, that's what separates the men from the boys, I guess. Yeah, as you can see, looking, I'm sure he'll go from one side to the other. The difference, from where he started with bending, tipping these pieces of metal together down to where he's at now is a complete change. And I said this is a tank 25, anywhere from 25 up to 40 hours to make, and we're 3 hours into it. It is definitely a tedious process, but in the long run, when it's all over, it's so worth it. And again, DAing on something like this, you'd never be able to run a grinder as long as you are. The DA does such a nice, smooth.
Yeah, it's hardly removing any material at all.
Yep.
So it's just blending, what we call blending. It's just doing the blending work. It's not removing. You're not going to DA through a weld,
Right.
but you certainly will grind through one.
Yes, sir. So choosing your tools at the right time, using them for the right application is huge. And again, the nice thing, if you're into something like this, you can go back on any of these shows. We've done it multiple times. You know, YouTube, go back and check out, you know, if this is something you're into, or the setting up the welding like with Austin and Brian the other day. So definitely it's nice to be able to reflect back and look at some of this stuff. I mean, carb rebuilds, we've done carb rebuilds and transmission installs, and you know, lots of stuff to look back into and reflect back on if you have issues. You know, as Pat says, we're just a bunch of greasy mechanics from all over the country that are trying to make your life easier. Because we're here for you. Does that sound good? That work?
And so this is why I like to TIG weld it, because I'm able to get in here and actually beat right on the weld.
Yeah. And again, this is another good a look back at yesterday. One of the things, like Evan had said and Dustin had said, to go and build this tank and not put the base on, so you can flip the tank over and see the whole weld, see everything that's going on, do as much cleanup as you can, make it as nice as you can.
And me personally, in my shop, a lot of times I'll use Dykem on this process right here.
Yeah.
I'll actually Dykem that. If I've got a low spot like I do now that's giving me a fit, I'll actually Dykem it. I'll be able to see my my hammer marks come up through, and you know, I can watch it as I'm raising that low spot up.
Right.
Really easy.
So you're almost giving yourself a reference point.
Yeah. We have a machine shop in-house, so you know, we use Dykem, you know, historically in the machine shop. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have it there and use it for other areas too. You know, it comes off the metal real easy when you're done. Lacquer thinner takes it right off. So.
You know, and also stuff like having this table, having a good work area. This is a well-built table, and it's so nice to use. It comes with all kinds of attachments. You can lock stuff down. In some senses, it's a portable frame machine. It's so nice and straight. As long as you put it on a flat surface and make sure it's level, the thing's awesome. We've said multiple times this weekend, this table gets loaded in the trailer we haul the tools in last. So when we get home, it's the first thing that comes out. We normally take it right out of that trailer. So again, you can tell it's a slow, tedious process to, you know, to get the finished product you want. In some senses, you overwork yourself, you run deep. If you're going to do some mud work, we're not saying by any sense don't use any polyester putty or filler. I mean, this stuff works really well if you're, you know, if you have your good, clean product that you're working with. You can fill anything, you can almost make anything out of it. The point is the least amount that you can use. In all reality, you have less shrinkage, you have less issues, and time-wise, I mean, a lot of these builds they're timed. You just don't put one of these bikes in the garage and take your time, build them. You know, these things are for shows. You have a deadline. If you're anything like we are at Flat Broke, you normally don't have the time. You need to really get in there and get it done. So, you know, speed isn't an issue, but the more this you do, the better you get at it, the faster you can do it.
And another thing I like to do, and it's probably unnecessary, but if I've really beat on an area like I did there, I'll re-weld it.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't crack, I'll still re-weld it. I just
Right.
feel a little bit better about it. You know,
Get a
and then
little
I'll
more
come-
material in there.
just to make sure there's no crack that I didn't see.
Right,
You know,
right.
when I moved it, I probably moved that thing out 175 thousandths.
Yeah.
So
Very minimal.
well, that's a pretty good bit. I mean, 175 is just 75 thousandths below a quarter of an inch.
Yep.
So I moved
Yep.
it out a good bit. So I want to re-weld it. So I just ran over it, pushed in some more filler wire. Now I'm going to grind it down again. I didn't put enough heat where it dropped back down.
Yeah.
Just enough to push some filler wire in it, make sure there was no crack in there.
Yeah.
And then move on.
Right. So more and more that you're watching him do this, you can see why, and this would be anywhere from, 25 to 40-hour job. And again, if you're using a raw material bike where there's no paint or it's a clear over the paint instead of a clear powder coat or something, the finished product has to be perfect. Then has to be exactly what you want. And you can tell he's going from the grinder, with a heavy disc on it down to an 80 grit DA, giving himself an orbital, and then stepping down to a cookie, a foam, more of a soft pad, clean himself up, try and get the material spread out, or spread out so he's not taking more material out of it. And also, again, if you need to put that dolly in there and do some dolly work to not make it as brittle as, it can get very brittle to where it cracks again. You're trying to avoid that for sure. It's funny because you watch doing on the seam where the two pieces of metal butt together. He's working on that seam, but overall he's got a 2-inch area or so that he's concentrating on to actually give him that contour that he's looking for. Stick with that. That I'm not mistaken, it was a number 2 that Evan had decided that was how he wanted it. Keep in mind, every time he takes that hammer on the inside, he's pushing another spot out that he has to go back into, try and level back off, get it to where he wants it. And this is even before the paint guy steps in and does somewhat the same thing. As I've watched, Chris or multiple people make tanks and then set it on the table in front of me, and I'll spend 2 hours getting the metal where I want it and cleaning it before I'll even wipe polyester putty over a seam or over a spot that I'm going to have to work on. What are you thinking?
Well, for the most part, I think we can call that done.
Yeah.
I got a wampus in it, that just came from traveling too fast. If it was, if I was in the shop, taking
Right.
the time, and I could have avoided that. But for all intensive purposes, you have made it. You've taken a seam, and you've been able to weld it up and finish it out to where you can't identify a welded joint, and that's the most critical part.
Right.
If there's highs and lows in the joint, that's, as long as you're not building a bare metal finish product, it's going to get a skim coat of body filter at the body
Right.
shop most of the time. You don't want a gallon of mud in there.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. You're going through all this and doing it, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to being the body guy, going to come in and do it also. So it all
Yeah.
comes down to if the guy who originally made these pieces would have done a way nicer job, then it would have been so much. It would have been so much easier for the rest of us to do what we do. But he just came up here and threw it together, and he didn't care about us. He was only worried about himself. Oh, Evan, stop being a hater.
If the guy who welded it hadn't a hauled butt,
Yeah.
and it welded it in 5 minutes.
Right, but
You know?
again, the point is you have two people that are, doing just masters in this industry, and you're seeing the time that it's taken them on and I'd never consider Evan the master. I'm just being nice because he's staring at me right now. But to watch these guys come up here and do this, and then you try it, and you're like, wow, I have way more respect for what they do in their finished product, because it's not easy. It's a very trying process to get the finished product that you're looking for.
And the critical part, for people that are at home watching that want to understand, it's just like sand and body filler. You're going to start with a coarser grit
Yep.
to get the bulk of it down, just like you might start with a real coarse sandpaper, sand and body filler. And you're going to go from maybe 36 roll-lock if you really want to move some material to an 80. And then for me, I'm going to step up to 80 grit again, but it's going to be on this, which is,
DA.
removes a tenth of the material
Yeah.
that this thing does.
Right.
After that, I go over with a Scotch-Brite pad. That is that almost removes no material. The brown Scotch-Brite is my go-to.
Yep.
Everybody might have a preference, and then finish it off with a DA. And again, your objective in metal finishing is to make the weld undetectable.
Right. Yeah. Hide it completely.
Completely
No edges.
hid, no
no
edges,
nothing.
no sharp places that you're.
Which obviously, if you take a look at that, I mean, you're not getting much better than that. So
you could get better.
well,
You could,
I'm
but-
saying in the time period, like
Right, in the
what-
time
what
period
we're
that we
throwing
got,
down.
Oh, listen, not even the time period, dude. I got a nice, tight close up on this now.
Yeah.
That's a really nice job. And any body man would be happy to see that come in the door.
Well, I saw one or two high spots. No, it's like to get to this level takes a minute. Take your time, pay attention to what you're doing. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, you're going to end up causing yourself nothing but aggravation. If you find a problem, I said we had stemmed on it before with Austin and Brian up here. If you find a problem, stop, clean it up, get the problem resolved before you keep going, because that problem is just going to get bigger if you don't.
Right.
So
Right. And the other tools that I brought, I didn't know what kind of joint I was going to do. These would be more for an inside T that, had a round, so, this
Right.
part had an inside curve. Those are the most difficult. Those are the most challenging to metal finish. Those are the ones that you have the the tools
Most
you don't
time.
use very often, but you can put a lot of time.
Yeah.
in-
If not
into
without
those.
that tool to do it by hands.
Yeah,
Super hard.
All the way down to a Dremel. I didn't bring that, but I use a Dremel a lot at the shop for some really
Yeah.
tight, and on my social media you can see some of the, and again, it's more automotive related than motorcycles, but on my bagger there's pictures of that where I
Yeah.
pushed in the sides of the tank,
Right,
pushed in the top
right.
of the bags. I had really tight inside 90 degrees that I had to get in there and finish out.
Clean those all out. Yeah.
And I had to get in there with a Dremel and at the end
It's
by
time-
hand.
very
It's
time-consuming,
Very
yeah.
time consuming. I've got little 1-inch DAs that I can get in there and get
Right.
that corner finished out and try to do a really nice job.
Yeah.
This seam and this other seam I did yesterday, these are easier seams, more basic tools. A trick that I did find that it took me a while to learn, at first when I was really learning my craft and doing inside joints, metal finishing them, of course I'd always want to grab something like this
Right.
or even something like this to get in there.
Yeah.
And what works better is a roll lock that you break. So as you put you grab a roll lock disc, it's
Snap
stiff.
it. Yep.
I will flex it. You'll hear the grains just cracking and just giving in, and it makes it so flexible.
It rolls into
It
that
actually
edge.
gets into there much better than any other tool.
Yeah.
And you can cut a really nice.
And I've actually
sharp
went
radius.
to the 3-inch roll lock, breaking it and putting it on the 1.5
Mm-hmm.
and it'll eat itself away, but it'll also give you that grit to be able to clean out inside joints like that.
And
So-
I've got at the shop I've got backing pads that I've cut down much smaller than
Yeah.
needed, and I'll cut I do this quite often. I'll cut a star into the disc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that'll let it really flex and get into an inside corner that's
Yeah.
that you're not going to get into anything else with.
Right.
If you want to finish it out,
Yeah.
real nice. So
Yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah. So that's pretty much it on the metal finishing. And again, it's just people need to realize it's important not just for the tank to hold fuel, but if you want to do if you're putting panels together and you want to send them through paint and you don't want to see that seam come back.
Yeah.
That's really critical that you can't see the weld seam before
Right.
it goes body work on top of it.
Let everybody know where they can see your stuff and what's the best way to catch up with what you have going on right now.
Just social media, Instagram mainly, and then I have a Facebook account, both of them under my name and business name. So that's Dustin Maben at Maben Concepts. So, and
Yeah, don't pass up checking out some of his stuff. He's got some amazing stuff here.
Hey, real quick from social media, we got a check-in from Dana Macaroni in the
Dana.
house.
All right. Hi, honey.
She said that looks amazing.
I'll
That
be
tank
seeing
looks
you in a
amazing.
little while here. It's been a while.
best thing I learned all weekend was Evans hammer. I think I'm gonna take it with me.
Evans wooden hammer.
Well, he sanded. I use the exact same hammer as I have pretty much everyone they made.
We should break that before we leave, accidentally, of course.
Right. I really like how
Terrible.
I really like how
Evans
he
just got really nervous.
Yeah, I like how he sanded that middle down. Yeah, I can't take it with me. No, man.
Oh, but Evan, I forgot. I put it in the toolbox.
You can bet Monday morning I'll be
Yeah.
sanding my handles down in the middle. It's super nice. It's worth the whole weekend to see it and use it. It's awesome.
Well, anything else?
We're gonna come back in a little bit.
It's pretty much a wrap on this one. Thanks, Dustin, for everything we have going on here. Evan for putting the metal together on the tank. We'll be back here in a bit. We're gonna take a little break from the Cherokee, from the Blue Ridge Cherokee run. Thanks, everybody. See you in a bit.
We actually have real quick segment coming up with Hank Thibodeau on some Milwaukee 8 performance upgrades. You don't want to miss that.
Yep. Coming up here shortly. We'll see you in a bit.